I'm Bob Murphy, stagehand for many years. Basically, this is a class for the loading bridge, but we're going to start on the fly floor because a lot of the things on the fly floor you won't see up on the loading bridge.
Hello everybody, and welcome to this video on the Palace Theater loading bridge and fly system. We'll get back to Bob in just a minute, but for the benefit of those viewers who are new to all this, let's take a look at a simplified diagram of a typical counterweighted pipe or batten like those used over every professional stage. The bottom of the diagram represents the stage floor. Hanging above the floor is a pipe or batten. For simplicity, only one pipe is shown here, but most theatrical stages have many pipes that hang side by side, just inches apart. These pipes are used to hold up stage curtains, border cloths, side legs, lighting equipment, and much more. During a typical move-in of a show, the pipes are lowered down, one at a time, to a height of about 4 feet above the floor, so that stage crews can easily reach them. So looking at the diagram, you can see that the pipe is suspended on strong, flexible steel cables. These cables are routed up to an overhead steel grid through heavy, round pulley wheels, then to the sidewall of the stage. The cables then roll over a large steel drum, called a head block, and go back down and connect to the top of steel carriage, called an arbor. The arbor can hold a whole pile of steel counterweights. By loading the arbor with the right number of weights, the pipe and everything on it can be balanced so that one stagehand, called a flyman, can easily raise or lower the pipe as needed. The heavy rope that goes down to the flyman is called a purchase line. When the pipe is down, the arbor is up, nearly 5 stories up. This is where stagehands load counterweights onto the arbors when a show is moving in. This large work platform is known as the loading bridge. We're going to get a good look at the Palace Theater loading bridge in just a minute. But first, Bob starts us out at the locking rail, which is located below the loading bridge on or near the stage floor. This is where the flyman pulls the purchase lines during the show and gives his orders during the move-in to the loaders up above.
So we're going to start with some basic stuff, the difference between a single purchase and a double purchase. Usually your upstage line sets or your downstage line sets are the ones that will be double purchase. The way you can recognize those is the arbors are longer, and the reason they're longer is to accommodate more weight. They have half the distance to travel, so they require twice the amount of weight. So in this case, we have 4 line sets upstage, and then we'll work our way downstage, and then you can film, Kevin, down so they can see the difference between the double purchased arbors. And so if you can shoot straight down, you can see that is the end of this double purchase. And then the line set directly downstage of that, you can see goes all the way to the deck. So it's a lot longer run. That's added a mechanical advantages. You have an extra sheave below the head block, and that's why you have a little bit more resistance, and that also is the reason you compensate for the length of run. Okay, so we're going to move downstage. What you see here is the rail, and usually when a show comes in, a guy will bring up a line set chart and he'll mark the rail. And when you mark the rail, the guy will tell you which ones are electric, which ones are going to have the drops, which ones are going to have the legs, the borders, the scenery, so on. And once that flyman has laid out the rail, then you'll begin to add the weight as they load it down there. And again, the system is like a teeter-totter. Whatever weight is used down there, it's the simplest way to explain it. Then that weight is applied here to give a balance so that the man can physically operate it because it's so evenly balanced. He can bring in 1,000 pounds or he can take out 1,000 pounds. The front rope is to bring things in. The offstage rope or the back rope is to take things out. This plate here, the first plate you'll come to, which in this case is 2 weights. These weights are around approximately 35 pounds. So if you have 10 weights, you're talking about 350 pounds. Some guys carry a chart up here, so if the flyman tells you he needs 9 weights, or if he says 400 pounds, you'll know approximately what he's talking about, and you'll go to that point. The pipe weight is the weight that the pipe has. That is exactly what that batten weighs. So the larger the proscenium opening, the more weight you're going to have on that pipe because it's going to be longer. Okay, some theaters are small, so they'll only have 3 or 4 drop lines. Some of them are 6, so you'll have a lot more weight for pipe weight. The next plate you would use, let's say they're going to put legs on it. You would put 4 weights on there to compensate for your legs. Same way with borders, same way with drops. Some drops are heavy, some drops have what they call bottom pipe in them, which would make that same scrim maybe another 50 pounds of bottom pipe, which is a smaller diameter batten that slides in a sleeve. We have 2 kinds of weights. Most of the weights are up on the loading bridge. The flyman has his weights down here also, because sometimes they'll add something or subtract something, or he just wants to tweak it to get a better balance. So the flyman will actually at times do the same thing as the loading bridge guy. We have 2 types of weights. Like I was telling you about, the first weights is around 35 pounds. We also have half weights, where they're generally anywhere from half that weight to even less. Whereas if you have a working piece, especially if it's a hard piece where you got to bring it in fast, you don't want it to be overweight one way or the other, because it's going to be hard to land that piece without making a big thump to where the audience hears it. There's about 4 different plates on each arbor, so that you can have, a mirror ball and different things like that on here, and that's the way you'll separate. You'll know, okay, that's pipe weight, then I go another 2 weights, that's my mirror ball weight, so that you always are aware of how many weights you need to take off depending on what item you're taking off. Also the spreader plates, there's a little discrepancy on these plates. Tiffin, the company that installs this, they want a plate. Here's a good example. This is an empty arbor, pretty much. So if in case this thing would ever run and it would crash, these bars separate and the weights could come off. So they suggest so often to have a plate to keep these bars together. That's fine, but it confuses the hell out of people, because now you have a plate that's not just used for differentiating the different pieces, but keep this. I've been in the business for a million years. I've seen it happen twice, but I've never seen it. I've seen a line run and hit, but I've never seen the bars separate to where the weights go off. So even though that's a safety thing, it also is very confusing for people, not only for the flyman, but for the loader when he sees, what's that plate there for, I've been with a lot of different flymen. Some of them will not ask you for anything. They're very independent. That's so they don't have any surprises. They'll only ask you for the bare essentials. Other ones will, if they know you and they know you're watching what's going on, they'll ask you for a pole on a certain line that they have to move either in or out. These bowl lines or pickup lines, they're used to accommodate the weight of the cable coming off the end of the pipe. They're not going to be addressed on the arbor because they're off of the batten. And so somebody will lower a pick line, and he may ask you up on the loading bridge to give him a pole, because on a multi-cable it's about a pound per foot. So if you have 4 big cables coming off and you got 8 foot, you got quite a bit of weight. So he'll need some assistance on doing that. These pins are called belaying pins, and there are a lot of the similarities between sailing in the old days. the stage has incorporated a lot of that technology from the old sailing days into the theater. So there's things you'll see. And there's certain ways we do things so that they can be taken off slightly, loosened out, and brought in easily and safely, which is, there's only one. So that's the other thing. The flyman, he knows the way these are, and so he's persnickety. He doesn't want to do something and all of a sudden the thing runs. So the flyman is kind of like a caddy and the golfer. You know, they work together constantly, and if the guy up there is watching what's going on down here, it's a new set of eyes for the flyman. It really helps him out because when he's over here working the line, he can't see what's underneath here. Whereas the guy on the loading bridge can be his extra set of eyes. He can see if something's foul, he can see if somebody's under something, and you can be a great assistance to the flyman. If you want to work on the rail, the way to work on the rail is really to start on the loading bridge. The loading bridge is a great way to watch everything that's going on stage, and if you have a good relationship with the flyman, you can tell him things to watch out for, or things that are going on, things that are not lined up right, and help him in a million different ways, because this is not only a very busy place, but it's a dangerous place. Anytime you're above deck, it's dangerous, because if you drop something out of your pocket and you're walking on stage, no big deal. If you drop something out of your pocket, at 30 feet, believe it or not, I've seen a big pin stick in a piano lid. And that's hard to believe, but if you imagine that big pin going through the top of your head, so anything you drop out of your pocket, make sure when you're climbing up that you take everything out. Even your glasses may fall, a rope may hit you, and whatever. Glasses not any big deal, cigarettes no big deal. A pipe wrench, or not a pipe wrench, but a crescent wrench, a gerb, anything like that will kill you dead or a doornail, you know. And we've been lucky. God loves theater, I'm convinced of it, because I've seen things fall and always land a foot or so from the guy, you know. Never seen anybody get killed. I have seen 2 people drop the weight because they don't have the hand strength, and you know that's something that, you know, if you're afraid of heights, you may not want to be up there, because a lot of times you'll be required to go up on the grid. But having strength in your hands is important, because some shows you may be handling 5,000 pounds or more in one day of weights. You know, so sooner or later you're going to pinch your finger. You're going to pinch, something's going to go wrong, because you know there's no way around it. We don't have a show going in right now, so we don't have the rail loaded. At certain points in shows, especially Broadway shows, almost every line set is used. You know, but here it's marked out. This one's legs. Here's a border. Anytime you see the X's, this is number 3 electric. These are loaded differently. Whenever you have legs, you have part of your weight is on the deck, so you're not going to get a true feeling of your balance, because the weight is not all on the arbor. Whereas electric, it's all on the arbor. So you can actually do a thing called floating, and that's what the electrician will suggest, is float that weight. So what that means is you're going to gradually watch what's going on deck as they load some of these lights, and some of these lights may take 4 weights per light. So as long as you stay behind that, the arbor's not going to run on you. But once you get ahead of that guy and have too much weight on your arbor, that thing will go out, and the flyman does not want to see that line set start to move. You know, so what you'll do is when you get so close, you'll start to pull on that back line and see how close you are to that balance, you know. So, and if you look down here, so pretty much we've got the same thing. The mid black, which is a blackout drop. You'll generally on a show have at least six electrics. On a small show, you'll have 4 maybe, you know. All right, I think we can go back up on the loading bridge now. All right, this bucket is on a shiv up on the grid, and it's brought up. You put your radios in there, or your magazines, or water, or any essentials, line set information, everything, so you don't have to climb up the ladder with things in your pocket, which again will drop. So you'll put it in this bucket, and guys will send it from the deck to the flyman. If the flyman needs, the guy up there needs bulbs or anything up there, this is the way we move it, through this bucket. I want to also show you the perspective that you have when you're working on the loading bridge that the flyman doesn't have. And one of them is looking over the line sets in this position. It's a little dark, and I don't know if you can see, but this is what the flyman can't see. So if you've got something fouled or hung up, this can save a lot of work, and actually it's a safety thing too. If something's just hanging on there, you can tell sometimes the guy, they get in hurries. Anytime you hurry in a theater, you're asking for trouble. Especially like when I was talking to you before, when you're high up, because if somebody's saying we're behind, we need to hurry, you know what? We're going to be behind, because I'm not going to hurry to the point one of these weights is going to drop, because when it hits, it doesn't mean it's over. It can bounce, it can go any direction. You can't anticipate where it's going to go. In the theater, a lot of times if somebody drops something, you're supposed to yell heads. Well, in my experience, if you drop something and you look down and nobody's there, they may get on you for not yelling heads. But to me, if you yell heads and nobody is under you, they may run directly under you. So that's another controversial type of thing. But a lot of times when somebody's doing electric, somebody's opening shutters, somebody's making the connection on the cable, but and it looked like the light was tight, but the light wasn't tight. And so a guy can see when the thing's flying out that if the light's kind of swiveling around, it's loose. So he can be a great aid to the flyman in many ways, really. Let's see. Here's the tips that we were talking about that you may assist the flyman in these offstage pick lines. This will be part of your job. We'll go up on the grid in a little bit, and I'll show you another thing that the flyman may ask you to do if he knows you can do it. Let's see. Right here, the plates over here will tell you the line set. So if he says I need 8 weights on line set 23, these are the plates that tell you they go from lower numbers downstage to higher numbers upstage, and that is in every theater, that's the way they go. They'll never go in any kind of order. We'll explain to you that in the Palace, the numbers are in complete sequence, 13, 14, 15, and all the way up. At the Ohio Theater, it's not that way. You may go 34, 35, 17. And the reason that number is 17, well, that's way downstage. That's because that system is muled, so that because the obstructions on the grid, it may dictate to somebody how they have to put their line set. So even though you're here, that line set's not there. It's actually over here, 17. So that's an exception. So when you get to that curveball, you'll go, what the hell is this all about? Well, it's called a muled system, and it's a diverted line set where the cables go all the way upstate or whatever, but they're not straight across like the conventional theater. Okay. That's something else. That was leading me into something. Oh, the head blocks. I want to talk about the head blocks. Right above us, there is what they call head blocks. And like I said, if you ever do a tiffin gig, that's one of the hardest things. Is they're not as big as they used to be back in the old days in the 1800s. These things were so just heavier than hell, and you had to drag them across the theater, because I've been involved in some of those old line sets. But that head block is where all these cables connect, and you can count. Well, we won't go into that, but the more cables, the wider the proscenium is. The more cables, the more weight you're going to have to put on the theater, on the back. because it goes up into the head block, and then that's where it's transferred. And we'll walk up there and show you, but I did want to show you what the head block is. That's an important thing of how the arbor is actually working with the head blocks. This is, again, I think we talked about it, but this is a better spot. What you see here is the T-rail, which is the same thing they have with the elevators, that system that runs on rails, just like anything else that runs on rails, but this is running vertically. Okay, what else can I tell you up here? A show like this, sometimes when you're done, you only have 10 weights left. So that gives you an idea how much you may be working that day. This can be a pretty good workout for you, and it will definitely strengthen your arms if you have the strength to start out with. I tell you in my years that if somebody doesn't have the strength to do it, they're not going to probably change. People that are afraid of heights are not going to suddenly be okay with heights. It's best to be upfront with people and honest and say, I don't feel comfortable, because if you don't feel comfortable, you're not going to be safe. I will talk about handing off weights when you're with somebody else. You want to hand them the weight that you guys work out, not in a fast, nobody needs to set any records, but something that both people feel comfortable with. And once you've established the way you're handing that weight off, don't change it. Be consistent with that so they know exactly the way you're going to hand it to them each time. And that's something that won't take you very long. You'll find what's comfortable with both of you. Since we don't have an arbor up here, I think we're probably going to have to go down. But we'll walk across the grid first, and I'll show you some stuff up there. Now you have a good perspective up here of what the head blocks look like and how they come off. And they feed, in this case, 4 different sheaves that are the down lines that are attached to the battens. And these cables are spaced out about, as you can see, about 20 feet. And that's what you'll have on the battens down on the deck is pickup lines about every 20 feet on those battens. Here's an example of the offstage right sheave. And now these sheaves will be something that every once in a while you'll be asked to divert. In other words, if you need more space on the upstage side of this sheave, you'll go up and loosen it up and rearrange them. So the flyman may say, I need a line set 19, 8 inches downstage. So he would come up and do that. That may be something, like I said, once the flyman knows who you are and what you're capable of, and try to, instead of taking somebody from a department on stage that's doing something else, if you're not doing anything, he may ask you to do that. And that happens almost every show, that some piece will be wider than other pieces, and you'll need to accommodate that. So we're going to work across the grid here a little bit. And you'll see this, it's marked up here, center stage. It's marked from down to up on how many feet downstage to upstage is. So riggers will actually use this more than the loading bridge guy will, but if he says something to you, you can use that reference, the same reference they use for rigging. The flyman or the loading bridge guy can use, which is not marked on every line, but at least center stage is usually 60 feet from 0 to 60. So in this case, it's 48 feet. So some, like I said, every theater is a little different. Some of them are like the Pythian's, like 8 feet, and this one's 48 feet. I think the Ohio is 65 feet, something like that. I just brought this arbor up so you can see what this gig is all about. So what we have here is just again, the weight of that batten down there is just 3 weights, which is exactly what that batten weighs with its cables and all that. And I will tell you one other thing. These cables that run, they'll go all the way to the deck and they'll fly all the way out, just like they are now. Right now, they're all the way out, which means all this cable weight from every one of these cables, that weight has now shifted, just the weight of these cables. So let's say there's 100 feet of cable on each one of these. So we have 500 feet of cable, which the cable itself doesn't weigh much. But if you think of 500 feet, or not 500 feet, well, say 100 feet per, so you're talking 400 feet. At one point, all that weight is shifted one way, and then when you take it out, so there is a little variance in the balance as it's moving. So a lot of people will go, I think it needs another half weight. Well, it only needs another half weight now, because now it will be another half weight short when it gets all the way one direction or another. A lot of people don't take that into consideration. They'll think, it's not right. Well, it's never going to be completely right, because of the cable weight. Everything else is staying the same. Okay, so I just brought this thing up, and we're going to separate, which is the first thing you'll do. You'll raise those plates up. So now you always leave one plate down. And these plates here, you'll raise. Now some of these thumb screws are 100 years old, so they'll wear out, and some of them don't work. Now a lot of guys will take their crescents and they'll tighten those things. Okay, that's okay too, but now you have a chance of dropping a crescent wrench. So if it doesn't work, then you take one of these, a tie line, you make it into a loop, and you go around it, and you just put it there. And that's kind of what I do. A lot of people do this with the clamp, and they'll hold the plate up with the clamp. Okay. It's not as good because that clamp it gets bounced around, it can fall. So the best of two worlds, to do it really safe, is to tie something onto that clamp and do both, because there's nothing worse than dropping anything. 'Cause like I said, that guy down there, it can bounce around, it can hit him. So, and like I said, I've seen 2 weights fall, actually 3, but two was just from somebody dropping it. And both those people never worked on a loading bridge again. That was it. And one of them actually quit. So now let's say you're putting a leg on. So right now, let's just do that. So I can show you. And you see what happened there? That's somebody trying to put a square knot in that turned out what they call a granny knot, which is a granny knot. Actually comes out, this one won't. So anyway, like I said, you leave one plate down, tie this one up, and so you take one of these rascals. Now let's say this is going to be a leg, and we're going to put 4 of these on. You'll find the best way to do this, and that will be your way. I'm not going to show you how to do it because it may not be comfortable for you. Some people put it on the front and drop it on the back first. Some people put it on the back first and drop it to the front. I'm a guy that puts it on the back and drops it on the front because I can see that it's in. And I think for years I went the other way, but this is the way I ended up with. So then you put 4 plates on there, or 4 weights, and then you would drop a plate. Now, if nothing else is added to that, just the 4 weights, you drop all your plates. If you don't drop all your plates and you leave one up, and you forget the ladder, then what happens is in the show, when you're moving that piece, it wiggles, and the audience can hear that. So you always want to make sure that all those plates are down, because that's another one of those embarrassing things. that can go wrong during the show, and everybody knows who it was. The guy on the loading bridge. So for new guys, there's room for a lot of screw-ups. And the only bad mistakes we ever make are the ones we make twice. So as long as you can learn from something, you're pretty normal. All right, let's stop. Okay, we're going to talk about overhauling a line set. So let's say a guy has a drop on something. He has a bottom pipe on a drop, and he needs to bring it all the way into the deck. Okay, so now you're going to need to have a guy up here, depending. If it's 400 pounds off weight, but they need to put a mirror ball on, let's say. So they got to bring that piece all the way in. They're going to ask to overhaul that piece. So everybody's going to be clear on wherever that upstage line that's coming in. They may ask some of the guys on stage to put a rope on the end of a pipe so the guys on the deck can actually pull it in.
We've done that.
Something that's 600 pounds, you're going to need me up here, Kenny or whoever it is on the fly rail down there, maybe a guy on the deck helping there, and then a bowl line, what they call bowl line, which is a rope that's going to be put over the pipe on both ends, maybe on stage left and stage right, depending. I mean, sometimes it gets pretty extensive, but that may be another thing you're asked to do is to give a pull to overload or overhaul a pipe for that situation. That's not going to happen all the time, but I would say maybe twice on a Broadway show you'll be asked to do that. So you'll know what that means when somebody said we need to overhaul a line. Anyway, so that's good on that, I guess. Puzzles or read a book or whatever and just waited for whoever it was to call. But after a while, I started getting into the show, and the show is watching the guys. Well, look at him. That guy, he's avoiding all the work. You know, I mean, you really see the workers, you see the lazy people, you see a lot of stuff. And again, Kenny's or whoever's down there, pretty busy job. I mean, pretty busy. So if you can say, hey, Kenny, it looks like that offstage line over there could get fouled on whatever, or they need to move that table over there because when that comes in, it's going to hit that amp rack or whatever, you know. And if you have the right guy and you think about before you ask something, go, okay, I think this is safe to ask him. I know, you know. So I know, you know. So you want to think about what you do because you don't want to cry wolf or whatever, you know. So, but a lot of things you can really appreciate. Even like a cable pick. A lot of times they'll have too much weight. And, I mean, tell me, we've had battens that were like this because a lot of times, see how if you look at this line right here, see how that line is not directly underneath that shiv? It's coming out at this point. See how the other ones are directly 90 degrees down? And well, that's good you're filming this. This line set right here and the one right upstage of it, both those line sets are coming, they're coming off stage. And the reason that is because they had so much weight, cable weight, that they wanted to distribute that pickup point closer to where the weight is. If they don't do that, then this will bend that pipe, you know. That's the reason. So even that stuff, you can look at it and go, you know, that was never put back. So when somebody brings that line set all the way back down the stage, they need to take that and put it back where it was, you know. But that's the reason they do get moved, is because sometimes you have to distribute the weight a little different to compensate.
If I can zoom in on exactly what you're talking about right there, those two.
And you've seen that too, right? Where, you know, there's so much cable coming off that, you know, like maybe you've got 5 multis and, you know, like I said, each one is a pound per foot. So you could have 300 pounds on the end of that pipe, which is going to bend that pipe. So that's why that's that way. And then, like I said, we could go on for a month learning all kinds of different things about the loading bridge and things that will come up. But, and I don't want to overwhelm anybody, but I want them a basic understanding, which is a teeter-totter. Everybody knows and understands a teeter-totter, and that's basically what we're doing. The We got the fat kids down there. We got to put a fat kid here, you know, skinny kid, you know. A few things that, and I never thought about, but I definitely want to tell somebody or anybody that's thinking about doing this for a length of time. This plate, these plates, those weights, you hear that? You hear that sound 1,000 times every day for 40 years, and it is a ringing sound, high frequency sound that is going to impair your hearing after so many years. So I know people do it when they're mowing their grass, but if you want to put in earplugs, and only when you're loading, because you still have to be able to hear that flyman. He's your guy. You have, if you have another person up here and you're talking to him, you really should pick the right times to talk to him, because it's irritating to the flyman that when he's trying to convey something that you're not paying attention. And now it's not only those plates, but we're going to put this back again. Real fast. So I don't want to leave that pipe out of weight. So I'm going to take this weight off. But before I take it off, I want you to hear this. That sound too. You're going to make that sound 1,000 times. It doesn't seem like much, but after so many years, you're going to get hard hearing. All these things make a little noise. But that is my advice to somebody. I know it may sound trivial, but you see, I'm still not wearing but that's, I wanted to not forget that, because I know some people do care about their eyes and their, and like I said, also, when you lower those weights, this is the spot that you're going to get pinched every 6 months, every year. It's going to happen. Inevitably, you're going to get nailed.